Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Carlos Baena. I'm a cybersecurity section officer here at the Organization of American States at CICTE. And I would like to welcome you to this webinar today entitled Building Secure AI Ecosystems in Latin America and the Caribbean, Insights from the 2020-2026 International AI Security Report. This webinar today is a joint activity by us, the OAS, the UK Embassy in Mexico, the Artificial Intelligence Security Institute of the UK government, and also the EON Institute. But before we begin, I would like to tell you some housekeeping items. Just to remind you that this webinar will be both in Spanish and in English. You can use the interpretation button in the bottom of your screen, the little globe, and click to choose which language you prefer. And a little bit about the event this afternoon. This webinar brings together regional policymakers, researchers, and practitioners to explore the latest global evidence on frontier AI risks and their implications for the Latin America and Caribbean region. This 75-minute session will present key findings from the newly released 2026 International AI Safety Report, including cyber risks of AI, AI-generated content and criminal activity, and deepfakes and information integrity, followed by a region-focused panel discussions with a live Q&A from the audience. The participants here today will directly hear from the report's lead authors and regional experts as they unpack what the emerging risks mean for the region's governments, institutions, and societies. This webinar also highlights opportunities for collaboration across regional networks and outline practical next steps for strengthening AI safety and evaluation capacity. Okay. By presenting the findings from this report, we will explore the implications of what it means for the region and an impact in the region. And we'll proceed today with identifying region-specific challenges and opportunities for governments, civil society, industry. And this event will highlight also how LAC governments or Latin American and Caribbean governments can use the report's conclusions to inform risk frameworks and regulatory approaches and national AI strategies, as well as provide a platform for dialogue and outline opportunities for continued engagement across the networks and institutions. Can you change the slide, please? There. Thank you. And now we'll go have an overview of today's program. We will start with opening remarks from Carrie Ann Barrett. She's a cybersecurity section chief of the OAS, followed by opening remarks from Rachel Brazier, deputy head of mission at the British Embassy in Mexico City and head of the Latin American and Caribbean AI networks. After that, thank you very much. After that, we'll have an expert presentation on the key findings from the 2026 International AI Safety Report, delivered by one of the lead writers of the report, Dr. Corina Pronko. Followed by, following Dr. Corina's presentation, there will be a presentation by Orlando Garces, who is OAS Cybersecurity Section Officer, and he will be presenting on the regional approach to AI-driven security policy and the policy landscape and challenges in Latin America and the Caribbean. Following his presentation, we will have a panel discussion, a moderated panel discussion with panelists joining us again, Dr. Corina Pronko and Jose Ramon Lopez Portillo, member of the expert advisory panel for the report, and Daniela Rojas, Deputy Director of Programs at EON Institute. After the panel discussion, we will have a dedicated time for Q&A with the audience. So we're hoping that we will get a few questions from you in the audience. And then followed by the closing of the webinar. And I would just like to mention that we will be switching again from Spanish to English, so be prepared for that. And we also kindly ask the speakers to speak a bit more slowly so that we can deliver a quality interpretation during the whole proceedings today. And thank you very much. And I would like now to give the floor to Carrie Ann Barrett Cybersecurity Section Chief of OAS SICTE, for her opening remarks. Carrie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Carlos, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone joining us from across the Americas and beyond. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar organized, as Carlos said, by the OAS SICTE Cyber Section, the UK government, through their UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, AI Institute, and the AN Institute. I would like to extend a special thanks to Rachel Brazel, Deputy Head of the Mission at the British Embassy in Mexico City, and to Dr. Karina, lead author, and the persons who actually suggested us doing this webinar jointly. To our distinguished regional expert, Jose and Daniela, thank you for joining us again today. Our own expert, Orlando, will be speaking as well, and we're really looking forward to seeing the perspective of the organization on this for the region. Since 2018, the OAS Cyber Section and the UK government have built a really strong and productive partnership. Since then, we've been able to implement projects together that will strengthen cybersecurity and regional resiliency across the Americas. We have been able to advance this cooperation in cyber diplomacy, incident response, law enforcement collaboration, capacity building, and just general support for member states in facing an increasingly complex cyber threat landscape. This continued collaboration reflects a shared commitment by the UK government and the OAS to promote a more secure, resilient, and trustworthy digital ecosystem throughout the region. Today's discussion also builds on that relationship at a very critical moment. Artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming economies, governments, and societies. Across the Americas, AI is already influencing cybersecurity operations or threats, public services, economic development. At the same time, it's also reshaping the global risk landscape and how we actually do digital governance. We're seeing growing concerns related to AI-enabled cyber attacks, deepfakes, disinformation, and vulnerabilities. But some of these risks are no longer theoretical. We believe that they now go to the very heart of critical infrastructure protection, democratic institutions, and public trust. And a lot of the AI insecurity that is happening in our region requires a structured approach. These challenges are very relevant for us because as Latin America and the Caribbean, we are being asked to continue to participate in the global digital economy. That requires us doing rapid digital transformation. And alongside of it, we're still grappling with huge cybersecurity capability gaps. This increasing exposure to cyber threats is why AI security must be discussed in the broader ambit of cybersecurity conversations. For more than 20 years, we at the OAS Cybersecurity Section has continued to support member states in strengthening cyber policies, incident response capability, critical info protection, and generally regional cooperation. Building on this experience, we believe that us as a region have a unique opportunity to advance responsible, secure, and resilient approaches to AI adoption. At the same time, we believe that no country can actually do these challenges alone. AI systems and cyber threats operate across borders, making international cooperation and, more importantly, knowledge sharing and regional dialogue indispensable. This report will challenge you. It will allow you to ask yourself some very important questions, such as how can governments really assess the security and reliability of AI systems and suppliers? How can we as public institutions evaluate and reduce the risk associated with embedding AI technologies into our systems? And what governance assurance and procurement mechanisms do we really need to support secure and responsible adoption? Today's webinar, therefore, is not just about telling you what the threats are, but it's also about understanding risks. We hope that you learn from the experts that will be speaking and that you will take this as an opportunity to strengthen partnerships, widen the discussion, and build regional collaboration that's needed to have a secure and trustworthy AI ecosystem across the Americas. Thanks again for joining us, and we really look forward to the discussions today. Carlos, over to you.
Thank you very much, Carrie-Anne, for your remarks. I would now like to give the floor to Rachel Brazel, Deputy Head of Mission at the British Embassy in Mexico City and Head of the Latin American and Caribbean AI Network, to give her opening remarks. Rachel, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Carlos. Y bueno, prometimos una mezcla de español y inglés, entonces voy a empezar con español para nuestros colegas que están conectando desde otros países de América Latina y el Caribe. Bueno, es un gusto abrir esta conversación sobre el Informe Internacional de Seguridad de la IA 2026, que es un trabajo basado en el conocimiento más reciente y en la cooperación internacional para entender mejor las oportunidades y los riesgos de la inteligencia artificial. Quisiera agradecer al AI Security Institute of the UK. Thanks so much for joining us. A la Organización de los Estados Americanos, el OEA, y al ION Institute por su colaboración en la organización de este evento, así como a todos los participantes por su tiempo y sumarse a este webinar. Para el Reino Unido, la seguridad es un elemento central de nuestra política exterior. Sabemos que debemos defendernos no solo de agresiones físicas, sino también digitales, especialmente en un contexto en el que actores maliciosos e incluso estados pueden aprovechar de estas nuevas tecnologías. Ante el rápido desarrollo de herramientas como la inteligencia artificial, esta prioridad también se refleja en cómo promovemos un entendimiento compartido en sus implicaciones. Un ejemplo reciente que ha alimentado estas reflexiones es el lanzamiento de Mythos por parte de Anthropic, que ha contribuido al debate sobre cómo los modelos de frontera están evolucionando y ampliando sus capacidades. El hecho de que haya sido puesto a disposición solo de un número limitado de organizaciones refleja tanto el potencial de la tecnología como la necesidad de gestionarla con cautela. Estamos orgullosos de haber establecido el Instituto de Seguridad de la IA del Reino Unido en 2023, ya hace 3 años, el tiempo vuela, tras la cumbre celebrada en Bletchley Park. Y desde entonces hemos dado seguimiento cercano a la evolución de las capacidades de la IA. Como parte del Ministerio de Ciencia, Innovación y Tecnología, el Instituto tiene entre sus principales objetivos, primero, evaluar los principales sistemas de IA antes de su lanzamiento público. Y segundo, informar a responsables políticos en el Reino Unido y en gobiernos aliados sobre capacidades y riesgos emergentes. El informe, que es un producto totalmente 100% independiente y científico, ofrece una base sólida de evidencia para tomar estas decisiones. También funciona como un punto de referencia compartida, al reunir a personas expertos de distintos países y disciplinas para analizar estos desafíos. Y en este esfuerzo, el diálogo regional es súper clave. Cada país en América Latina y el Caribe, desde sus propios contextos, aporta perspectivas, prioridades y experiencias únicas a esta conversación global. La región ya está trabajando en temas como transformación digital, el fortalecimiento de capacidades de ciberseguridad, y la integridad de la información. Todos están estrechamente ligados a los riesgos que analiza este informe. Y por eso, el objetivo de hoy es entender los riesgos y pensar juntos en posibles respuestas. Para el Reino Unido, la colaboración es una pieza central de este trabajo. Estamos comprometidos a colaborar con socios en toda la región, intercambiando conocimiento y aprender de la experiencia compartida, qué está funcionando, qué no y en qué contextos. Queremos asegurarnos que los sistemas de inteligencia artificial no solo sean más avanzados, sino también seguros, confiables y alineados con los valores que sustentan nuestras sociedades. Trabajan para nosotros. Esperamos que esta sesión contribuya a ese objetivo, que sea una conversación útil y sobre todo que la disfruten mucho. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Rachel. Now, carrying on, we will proceed to the presentation given by Dr. Karina Prunko, Senior Researcher Fellow at University of Oxford's Institute for Ethics in AI, and one of the lead writers of the 2026 International AI Safety Report. She is also a research scientist at INRIA's Regalia project, where her work focuses on AI governance, human oversight, and autonomy and accountability in general purpose AI systems. Dr. Karina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure today to speak to this audience here. So thank you very much for the invitation. So the capabilities of AI systems have increased really rapidly over the last few years. And despite this rapid progression, the evidence that we have on the risks that are associated with those capabilities, as well the evidence that we have on those capabilities, is emerging much more slowly. And this creates a governance challenge for policymakers who now have to make policy decisions on the basis of this very mixed, incomplete, emerging evidence. Now, the International AI Safety Report attempts to address this challenge. And it does so by trying to answer three questions. So the first one is about the capabilities of AI systems. What can general purpose AI do today, and how might its capabilities change in the future? And we're focusing on general purpose AI systems, so not narrow systems, but systems that are that can perform a number of different tasks in different contexts. The risks, what are the emerging risks that general purpose AI pose? And then finally, what risk management approaches exist and how effective are they in practice? Now, I want to just very quickly give you an indication of what the International AI Safety Report does, or how it came into existence. So the report itself is chaired by Yoshua Bengio, Turing Award winner, and often called one of the godfathers of AI. And it was written by a writing team of around 40 independent academics, with me and my colleague Stephen Clare as lead writers, and then various independent AI experts as writers. We got feedback from hundreds of different stakeholders across industry and civil society, but importantly also by an expert advisory panel with nominees from over 30 countries and international organizations. And the entire process was supported by the Secretariat, by the UK AI Security Institute. So thank you again for this. And I'm happy in the Q&A to talk a bit more about the independence and how the report came into practice. But now I want to start with some of the core findings of the report. So AI governance in 2026 faces an evidence challenge, or an evidence dilemma. So we have on the one hand capabilities that are advancing quickly, risks that are becoming more concrete. But the risk management tools, they are improving, but they are still lagging behind. And in particular, also the evidence that we need to assess the capability, risks, and safeguards of these systems is not really keeping pace with these developments. So let me go through each of these in turn and give you an overview of some of the key findings of the International AI Safety Report in 2026. So one of the first findings is that capabilities are improving rapidly, but they still do so unevenly. So areas of progress where we see especially rapid evolution, or especially rapid progress, are in the formal areas. So in the sciences, software engineering, mathematical problem solving. So in this graph, you can see a number of benchmarks that measure capabilities in these different disciplines. And just you can see from 2024 how we've just seen very strong improvements. Now, these improvements are in part due to more training data and more computing power, of course. But importantly, we have also two new drivers of progress. And those are, on the one hand, new post-training techniques. So this means, like, after the initial training with big data, we do reinforcement learning, various techniques to improve systems in those formal areas. And then second, you're using more computing power during inference. So while the model generates outputs, there's computing power allocated to this generation of outputs. And you can see it in, let's say, ChatGPT or Claude. Now the systems are thinking in a way, so they are using compute in order to create better answers, in order to compare different answers and then choose the best answer and do the step-by-step reasoning. And this helps them by once you're doing step by step, you're also becoming better at tackling complex problems. Now, we've also seen rapid progress in AI agents. So AI agents as systems that are planning and executing multi-step tasks without human inputs. And these systems have also improved very quickly. So the complexity of tasks they can perform has roughly tripled over the last year. Now, here's one way to measure this complexity. I mean, it's actually one of the only ways we can measure agentic capabilities in this way is by measuring task length. So this graph basically tells you how systems perform on tasks that would take humans a certain amount of time. So here would be a task where the model succeeds 80% of the time on that would take a human about 15 minutes. Or here 10 minutes, like finding a fact on the web. Now, we see this is an exponential curve, and systems have been improving rapidly, and this ends in 2026. By now, this task horizon is already at 60 minutes or more. Now, despite this rapid progress, when we look at the adoption of AI systems, then we see that the global AI adoption is still highly uneven. So even though overall we see a faster adoption of AI technology than we see with other technologies, such as the internet, and even though we have more than 1 billion users worldwide, these users are distributed unevenly across the globe. And you can see some areas, such as here, like Africa, have less than 10% user share, and other areas here, for example, France, have over 40% of users using it. Now, this, I should say that this figure relies on an extrapolation from a model. It's really difficult to identify like the real AI user shares, but it gives you an indication of the uneven AI adoption. Now, even though we've had this like rapid progress in many of these areas where systems can now pass the bar exam or pass medical exams, like answer graduate science, graduate physics questions, systems still fail in surprisingly some surprising ways. So in particular, at tasks that are long, the reliability goes down, but also for some seemingly simple tasks. So for example, systems still struggle with counting objects in an image, or if you ask a system, how many E's are there in seemingly, systems might still fail or just produce unreliable results in those for those tasks. So this comparison between a general purpose AI system as substituting a human intern or a human assistant, you have to take this comparison really with a grain of salt, because their capability landscape is just very different from a human one, like the way they function cognitively. We also see that systems still perform worse in languages and cultural contexts that are less represented on the internet. So, it's known that systems perform worse in these underrepresented languages, but they also can perform worse in cultural contexts. So, for example, if you ask systems about questions about US culture, systems might be right or accurate about 79% of the time, whereas when you ask them questions on Ethiopian culture, this accuracy just drops radically to about 12%. Now, overall, there is a big challenge in evaluating the capabilities of AI systems, and actually the risks of AI systems as well, something that we call the evaluation gap in the report, because the evaluation results often depend on elicitation. So this means how you prompt a system, how you give it access to tools, how much time you give it to compute the answer. All of this changes how able a system is to perform certain tasks, such as, for example, perform cyber attacks or perform on certain benchmarks. Another issue is with benchmarks themselves. So a lot of the graphs that I will be showing you today, or that I have been showing you, are about benchmarks, so ways of comparing the performance of AI systems. But these benchmarks are often quite insufficient to actually capture the real capabilities of systems in real world contexts. And some of this has also been recognized by AI providers. So, for example, in the system card of Claude Opus 4.6 and I think also 4.5, Anthropic now writes that their benchmarks weren't adequate anymore to assess how capable systems are at doing independent AI research and development. So they had to go and ask employees, they had to do an internal survey of what they thought the risks were, of the capabilities of the systems were. So this is really an issue. I mean, also if the system sees a benchmark while it's being trained, then the system might just memorize the exam results in a way later in the test setting, but it might not actually be able to it doesn't really know the stuff. So we see lots of problems here, especially, for example, in the medical domain, where systems might perform very well at like medical exams and test benchmarks. But then when you release them into real world settings, suddenly the systems might give unsafe medical results. Okay, so those were the capabilities. So let's move on to the risks, because some of these capabilities translate directly in some of the real world risks that we are seeing, and also some of the evidence that is now becoming more and more manifested. So one of them is that AI systems have become now very good at generating content, so media content. And you can see here on this slide how on the top left, you can see how DALL-E created as like an image on the prompt to display a classroom where a teacher explained mitosis to students. And you can't even see the face here, so it's pretty bad. And then it's just getting better and better over the years. And in 2025, the image is so sophisticated, you can even see the grain in the wood and the shadow of the hand on the projector. Now, this causes challenges because humans, even when you tell them they might be encountering an AI-generated image, humans are often not in the position to tell AI-generated content apart from real content. And AI-generated content detectors are also not performing at are also in many cases not reliably identifying these systems. Now, AI-generated media in itself is something neutral, but like this capability can also be exploited to do harm. And what we see is that now AI is increasingly used for impersonation, so voice deepfakes, fraud, and also targeted harassment. One of the key findings is also here that women and girls are much disproportionately affected by non-consensual intimate imagery. So, for example, there are these so-called nudification apps where you give the app an image of a woman, and it gives you back a naked version of that image. And 19 out of 20 of those apps target explicitly women and girls. And we've also seen it in the recent months with Grok, how very often women and girls are just affected disproportionately. Overall, incidents related to AI-generated media have been going up, as here shown in the OECD AI incidents database. AI is also increasingly useful for cybercrime. Now, earlier I said that AI has made particular progress in formal areas such as software engineering and mathematics and problem solving. Now, these abilities directly translate to a heightened risk for cybercrime. So AI systems are now just very good at detecting software software vulnerabilities. So in one big competition, AI agents identified 77% of flaws in major like in software. Now this put them on the same stage as the best human teams, and this was pre-Claude Mythos. So now with Claude Mythos, I'm pretty sure that this number has gone up substantially. Malicious actors now also regularly use AI for cybercrime. Now, a lot of providers report that systems are being misused for cybercrime. At the same time, it's often difficult to get precise numbers about this. And what we know is that currently it has not been the case that a cyber attack has been completely from beginning to end automatically been performed by an AI system. So, but it has been, we found that, or I think it was OpenAI who reported that about 80% of one attack has been automated. So it just seems to be a question of time when cyber attacks will be fully automated. Another challenge arises in the context of biorisks and chemical risks. So here the idea is that general purpose AI systems are used to help with the development of biological or chemical weapons. And again, this directly relates to progress that we've seen in the scientific disciplines. Now, for example, models now outperform domain expert at troubleshooting virology lab protocols. So here are various benchmarks, and like the 100% mark is the expert baseline, so to say. And you can just see that in areas like knowledge on biological weapons of mass destruction and virology troubleshooting systems have just become much better than human experts themselves. Now, as a result, some of the deployers and developers have heightened the safeguards for their models. So this means they could not rule out that novices might misuse their models to produce biological weapons, and so they have heightened their safeguards. At the same time, we need to see this with a grain of salt, because the uplift of this capability is uncertain. To create a biological weapon, you need much more than troubleshooting or knowledge. You also need to have a certain infrastructure in place. You need to have access to equipment, to ingredients, and so on. We also see now that there's a really heightened oversight challenges that are taking place. So AI systems are now able to identify when they are being evaluated. So the system might just be able to recognize that it's in an evaluation context. And there have been multiple experiments now and reports now of models changing their behavior once they identify that they're being evaluated. So in one experiment, a model has disabled an oversight mechanism. In other experiments, models are finding loopholes in order to lower or heighten the evaluation score. So this has become really a practical challenge now for oversight, because you want your system to behave in an evaluation setting, to behave exactly as it would in a real-world setting. This is why we have pre-deployment evaluation. But pre-deployment evaluation really is now becoming more tricky, and this is also being reinforced by the increasing agentic ability of systems, which make it harder to monitor and correct models. Now, as adoption proceeds, we also have new risks that are emerging. So AI companions are growing in popularity, with some apps now having hundreds of millions of users. Now, the evidence on this is pretty mixed on impact on people, and I'm happy to say more about this in the Q&A. But some evidence suggests that users can develop emotional dependence, and that especially vulnerable groups are at risk. AI behaviors that undermine oversight are becoming practical challenges for safety testing. And now we're also seeing first evidence on the labor market, although currently we don't see any aggregate employment effects. Now, the evidence that we have is that for certain jobs, such as writing jobs, you can see that certain that job levels have gone down, employment levels have gone down, while in other areas employment level have gone up. Now, some studies now suggest that, especially for junior workers, there might be an impact of junior workers in certain disciplines. There might be an impact of the introduction of general purpose AI. Okay, I'm worried that I'm running out of time, so I'm going to quickly talk about finding 3, which is safeguards, because not everything is bad. In fact, like there are lots of safeguards that we have available to address the risks from AI, and we do see real progress in risk management. So overall, methods have improved. Systems are more robust and more accurate now. Companies have released frontier AI safety frameworks, and also on the international level, we see that there is a trend towards a standardization of the reporting and the addressing of AI risks. Now, various challenges remain. In particular, we still have gaps in our scientific understanding about the systems themselves and about how to evaluate them. There remain information asymmetries, which means that due to proprietary data, policymakers might not have access to the systems or the data. There are market failures, so there's always there's a lot of pressure to release models, to develop models. So there might be this trade-off between safety and speed. And then there's also just institutional design and coordination challenges, and with which most people are probably familiar here. Now, the technical safeguards are also moving on, and we can see here, this is, for example, how likely are you, or look, with 10 attempts, can you get your system to produce a harmful output, such as how to build a bomb or how to commit suicide. So these outputs that we want to avoid, how likely are you to succeed in eliciting such an output? And you can see that the success rate with 10 attempts is just going down, but it's still at about 50% now. So half of the time, people still manage to get these harmful outputs. And so basically, this means that attackers can still frequently bypass the various safeguards. And it's a bit of a cat and mouse game where the attackers come up with new ways to circumvent safeguards, and then the community comes up, or the providers come up with new ways to improve their safeguards. Probably particularly relevant for the Latin American context is that open weight models pose particular challenges. Now, open weight models are models where the parameters are publicly available, so you can download them. And sometimes there's also the data that you can download. It depends. Now, these systems are now becoming really good. So capabilities are about 1 year behind the frontier models. One of the big issues is that with these open weight models, you can very easily remove the safeguards and change the models, fine-tune them for a harmful purpose. So just to give you an example, on the darknet, there are thousands of models that are tailored towards creating CSAM, and so and other harmful contexts. So these pose a real issue, because once these models are out, you can't really take them back anymore. Somebody might have just downloaded them onto their computer and then modify them for their purposes. At the same time, we need these models for innovation, for research, to especially given that the frontier models are often inaccessible to researchers and to innovators. As a result, and this is my last slide, I promise, Carlos, is the community is now moving more towards a defense in depth approach, where the idea is that you're layering multiple levels of safeguards to reduce the risk. So, for example, you might combine training interventions such as data filtering for training with deployment interventions such as input-output filters for your system having certain filters in place to not respond to harmful requests, to post-deployment monitoring, such as watermarking your systems, and societal resilience measure. And the idea is really, as can be seen here in this Swiss cheese diagram, the idea is that when you have a threat, that there might be some layer of safeguards that just holds it up, and that only some threats are actually going through and causing a harm event. Okay, so I'm going to conclude. Capabilities are advancing quickly, but as we've seen, still very unevenly. Real-world evidence for several risks is growing, while other risks remain uncertain. And then finally, risk management tools, even though they are improving, they still remain fallible and can be circumvented by motivated actors. With this, I thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to the questions and the answers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karina Punko, for that very insightful presentation, giving us the weeds of what the report was able to find. Thank you very much. Now I would like to pass the floor on to Orlando Garces, who will be talking to us about the regional approach to AI-driven cybersecurity, policy landscape, and challenges in Latin America and the Caribbean. Orlando Garces will be speaking in Spanish, and Orlando, the floor is yours. Por favor.
Hola, ¿me escuchas?
Sí, te escuchamos.
Ok. Ah, ahí, ¿cómo ve mi pantalla? ¿Completa?
Sí, está completa.
Ok. Bueno, muy buenos días para todos. Soy Orlando Garcés, oficial de políticas de la sección de ciberseguridad de la OEA SICTE. Nuestra sección en particular apoya a los Estados miembros de la OEA con asistencia técnica y legislativa en materia de estrategias nacionales de ciberseguridad y hemos acompañado directamente 21 procesos de estrategia en 16 países. También lideramos la red CECIR Américas, de la cual hablaremos adelante. En los próximos 10 minutos conectaré la evidencia global que acaba de presentar la doctora Frankel con lo que implica específicamente para América Latina y el Caribe, en donde la seguridad de la inteligencia artificial y la ciberseguridad se están fusionando en un único desafío de política pública. Tomando como punto de partida los hallazgos de la presentación anterior, quiero destacar tres que son más relevantes para nuestra región. Primero, las capacidades de inteligencia artificial avanzan rápidamente, pero la adopción supera a la gobernanza y América Latina y el Caribe corre el riesgo de heredar herramientas poderosas sin marcos de seguridad para gestionarlas. Segundo, el informe sobre AI Safety documenta evidencia creciente del uso de inteligencia artificial en operaciones cibernéticas, en actividades delictivas, en deepfakes y en fraude, etcétera. Y estas amenazas ya alcanzan nuestra región. Tercero, la gestión de riesgos a nivel global sigue siendo inmadura. Faltan aún evaluaciones, mecanismos de reporte de incidentes y residencia social. Estos tres hallazgos enmarcan los desafíos que quiero abordar en esta presentación. La matriz a continuación resume dónde podría estar América Latina y el Caribe en cuanto a varios pilares de gobernanza, de gobernanza digital en particular. En ciberseguridad hay un progreso real. Durante más de 15 años, la OEA SICTE y su sección de ciberseguridad ha apoyado directamente al 76% de los países que han adoptado estrategias. En gobernanza de inteligencia artificial, un grupo de países avanza, resaltando pues las iniciativas más recientes de Chile, Uruguay, Colombia, Costa Rica y Ecuador, pero la mayoría de la región sigue en etapas tempranas. Por otro lado, la gobernanza de datos y la protección de infraestructura crítica también están fragmentadas, y aquí yo veo que la conclusión clave es que nuestra región, América Latina y el Caribe, ha construido una infraestructura real de gobernanza en ciberseguridad y en otros temas, pero la gobernanza de inteligencia artificial aún está rezagada. Y estas dos agendas aún todavía no están conectadas. Ah, de forma teórica podríamos hablar que la ciberseguridad impulsada por la inteligencia artificial, o lo que se describe aquí el AI-driven cybersecurity, no es un solo tema, no es una sola cosa. Aquí tenemos un ejemplo de que son, por ejemplo, tres desafíos interconectados que América Latina y el Caribe debe abordar simultáneamente. Primero, la inteligencia artificial para la ciberseguridad, es decir, usar la inteligencia artificial para fortalecer nuestras defensas. Y esto se traduce, por ejemplo, en mejor detección de amenazas, mejorar las operaciones de los equipos de respuesta como los CECIR o los SOCs, y que sean estos cada vez más inteligentes, que haya mejor prevención del fraude, entre muchos otros. Segundo, la ciberseguridad para la inteligencia artificial, es decir, proteger los propios sistemas de inteligencia artificial, sus modelos, los datos, insumo, los entornos de despliegue, entre muchos otros. Y aquí es muy importante tener en cuenta temas como la manipulación adversaria, entre muchos otros. Y tercero, como deja claro el informe de AI Safety, el uso malicioso apoyado en la IA. Es decir, que la IA está permitiendo ataques más escalables, más rápidos y más difíciles de detectar. Por ejemplo, el phishing, los deepfakes, la automatización del fraude. Esto no es hipotético en nuestra región y es algo que está ocurriendo actualmente. Entonces, permítame nombrar 5 desafíos concretos que enfrenta nuestra región, y que estos desafíos que en el informe sobre AI Safety hacen más urgentes. El primero es la fragmentación. Tenemos nuestros Estados miembros en la OEA con enfoques de política muy diferentes. El segundo es la capacidad de evaluación. No tenemos un organismo regional pues con el mandato, las capacidades para evaluar los digamos, distintos riesgos de ciberseguridad debidos a la adopción de la tecnología emergente de inteligencia artificial o en los sistemas de inteligencia artificial. Tercero, existen brechas, amplias brechas en la gestión y respuesta a incidentes cibernéticos en los equipos CECIRT y SOC. Es decir, nuestra capacidad de respuesta pues, ha sido construida para amenazas que son del pasado y actuales, pero todavía no estamos preparados para estos ataques potenciados que se están presentando y que cada día son más complejos. Cuarto, pues el mismo reporte es el reporte de incidentes. Por ejemplo, según el Fondo Monetario Internacional, recientemente publicó un informe en donde se ve, se percibe, por ejemplo, que hay sectores altamente digitalizados, por ejemplo, que generan un bajo reporte en sus sistemas, un bajo reporte de incidentes, pero eso no significa un bajo riesgo, eso puede ser riesgos ocultos. Y quinto, la infraestructura crítica, los ataques habilitados por inteligencia artificial en sectores como la energía, sistemas de pagos o los servicios de salud, pueden tener efectos sistémicos. Estos cinco desafíos se conectan a lo que el reporte o el informe de AI Safety que se socializa hoy llama el dilema de la evidencia o el evidence dilemma. Y debemos actuar, eh, porque esperar es también una elección con consecuencias. Entonces, ¿qué podemos hacer en nuestra región América Latina y el Caribe concretamente? Aquí, por ejemplo, hay una propuesta de acciones que construyen sobre lo que ya tenemos y no desde cero. Primero, pues integrar los riesgos de la inteligencia artificial en las estrategias o la gestión de riesgos de inteligencia artificial en las estrategias nacionales de ciberseguridad. Muchos países las están actualizando ahora. Este es el momento. Por ejemplo, actualmente estamos apoyando a Ecuador en la formulación de su política nacional y recientemente hemos recibido solicitud de apoyo por parte de Bolivia. Segundo, construir capacidad regional de evaluación y aseguramiento, idealmente a través de instancias regionales, por ejemplo, pues la OEA, SICTE y alianzas regionales. Tercero, fortalecer la cooperación para la gestión y respuesta a incidentes, la cooperación entre CSIRTs y SOCs. Y aquí es donde el CSIR América es muy importante, es una plataforma que existe y los equipos miembros pueden aprovechar nuestra red para abordar estas amenazas potenciadas por la inteligencia artificial. Cuarto, mejorar el reporte de incidentes porque la evidencia impulsa mejores políticas. Quinto, usar nuestras plataformas regionales también existentes y aquí se ponen a consideración las de la OEA SICTE como el CSIR Américas, el She Secures, los acuerdos bilaterales, los equipos de trabajo como el CVMs, de las medidas de fomento de la confianza, entre otros. La infraestructura para la cooperación de confianza ya existe. El mensaje es América Latina y el Caribe tiene activos genuinos, hay información, hay datos y la tarea es conectar, actualizar y alinear con la agenda convergente de AI-Driven Cybersecurity. Finalmente, y para cerrar la intervención, pues me gustaría dar cuatro mensajes claves para nuestra región, América Latina y el Caribe. Y estos mensajes, pues espero se anclen la discusión del panel siguiente. Primero, la evidencia ya está disponible. Los gobiernos de América Latina y del Caribe que están actualizando sus estrategias nacionales de ciberseguridad y están formulando sus estrategias nacionales de inteligencia artificial, pueden usar el reporte o el informe de AI Safety como insumo fundamental hoy. Segundo, ningún país puede construir capacidad de evaluación de inteligencia artificial solo. La cooperación regional a través de la OEA SICTE es un camino práctico. Y tercero, las instituciones, digamos, sector público, el sector privado, la academia, la sociedad civil en nuestra región debe contribuir a generar evidencia regional y no solo recibir hallazgos globales. Nuestra región tiene datos y experiencia que el mundo necesita. Cuarto, finalmente, pues las amenazas cibernéticas, los deepfakes y el fraude habilitado por IA ya están llegando a nuestra región y una respuesta coordinada no puede esperar. Eh, Mi mensaje central en esta presentación es que pues América Latina y el Caribe no necesita empezar desde cero. Tenemos infraestructura de gobernanza real, redes regionales de confianza y un creciente impulso del ámbito político. La tarea es conectarlos y hacerlo ahora mientras los sistemas de inteligencia artificial aún se están configurando. Muchísimas gracias y les deseo lo mejor para los panelistas en la siguiente sección y para toda la audiencia, una discusión muy fructífera. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Orlando, for that overview of the region and the impacts of the report in the region and insights that you gathered. Thank you very much. Now we're going to be moving on to the moderated panel section of the program today. We will have about 35 minutes for a first round of questions to our panel, well, the initial part, and then we'll have a second part, about 15 minutes or so, to the general audience, where we will be answering their questions that we received in our chat. Moving on to our first round of questions, I would like to invite to the panel Daniela Rojas, who is the Deputy Program Director at EON Institute, where she leads the initiatives on AI governance, ethics, and public policy across Latin America. She's recognized by Forbes 30 Under 30 and Wired as a leading voice in responsible AI. She is focused on the social impact and democratic governance of emerging technologies. I would also like to invite to the panel Dr. Jose Ramon Lopez Portillo Romano, who is the co-founder and chairman of Zenith Energy Limited and co-founder of Q Element, a former Mexican Undersecretary of State and former chair of the FAO Council. He is currently an Oxford-trained political scientist whose work focuses on technology governance, innovation, diplomacy, and societal impact of emerging technologies, including AI. As well as once again joining us will be Dr. Karina Promkel. And to get this panel started, I would like to ask my first question to Daniela Rojas, being that where do you see where are the most urgent evidence gaps identified from the Latin America and Caribbean perspective, and how actions contribute to closing? Daniela Rojas, in Spanish or in English?
Perfecto, pues muchísimas gracias, muy buenos días y muy buenas tardes a todos y todas. Voy a cambiar a español porque creo que también es necesario tener estas conversaciones en este idioma. Como dijeron, soy directora adjunta de programas en EON Institute, que es una de las organizaciones que los convoca hoy, y para quienes no nos conozcan, somos un think tank mexicano liderado por mujeres trabajando en la intersección de nuevas tecnologías, impacto social y relaciones internacionales. Y el año pasado tuvimos el privilegio de organizar el primer evento regional sobre seguridad de la IA en colaboración con el AI Security Institute y la Embajada Británica. Y ahora sí, para responder la pregunta, justamente el encuentro que tuvimos el año pasado fue realmente revelador en ese sentido, porque si bien el informe ofrece una visión global del estado actual de la IA de propósito general, también es importante complementarlo con perspectivas regionales que reflejen cómo se experimentan estas realidades en lugares como América Latina y el Caribe. Por ejemplo, aquí en la región hay que arrancar con el hecho de que no existe mucha información. No se sabe cómo se está desarrollando, cómo se está utilizando inteligencia artificial, mucho menos IA de propósito general. Y aunque existen algunos estudios enfocados, están muchos enfocados en sector privado, y se ha repetido esta misma cifra constantemente, que el 40% de las empresas de la región utiliza inteligencia artificial, y aunque se ve un dato increíble, no se tiene información concreta de cómo se está utilizando, qué se está utilizando, quién está desarrollando y para qué. Y además medio es una falacia, porque dice que los países que más están adoptando inteligencia artificial en la región es México, es Brasil y Colombia. Y justo este año, el Centro México Digital, que es una organización mexicana, sacó un estudio diciendo que en realidad solo es únicamente el 8% de las empresas las que están utilizando sistemas de inteligencia artificial. Y es importante mencionarlo porque el debate de los riesgos también en su mayoría se está configurando principalmente por países que nos llevan mucha ventaja en términos de desarrollo y uso, y donde sus riesgos y nuestros riesgos tal vez se ven diferentes, ¿no? Así que dicho esto, existen oportunidades para las comunidades de investigación, para las instituciones regionales para cubrir algunas de estas lagunas de conocimiento. Por ejemplo, el año pasado lo que hicimos también fue tratar de hacer un mapeo regional con casos de uso de inteligencia artificial generativa en colaboración también con un instituto regional para ayudar a cerrar esta brecha y comprender cómo se está utilizando inteligencia artificial generativa y qué retos se están enfrentando específicamente los desarrolladores de la región. Estamos por publicar el reporte, entonces ojalá pronto les pueda comentar más. Y resultó ser muy revelador. Y las instituciones regionales son fundamentales porque juntos somos más fuertes como región y podemos construir una visión compartida y reforzar la acción colectiva. Una de las recomendaciones que surgió del año pasado fue justamente el reforzar las plataformas de intercambio de conocimiento y de redes de investigación colaborativa en la región, consolidando y mejorando las existentes, porque ya hay existentes que son muy buenas, pero con mandatos y con recursos claros. Y una de las iniciativas que también surgió en este brainstorm, donde trajimos a más de 24 tomadores de decisión de 8 países de la región para poder tener estas pláticas sobre seguridad de la IA, surgió que debería de ser importante mapear con mayor detalle los riesgos regionales y así poder identificar las áreas prioritarias de actuación. Y ya solo para concluir esta primera intervención, solo quiero mencionar que es importante sí formar parte de estos debates de alto nivel, pero no solo para extraer información, que es algo que también ya mencionaba Orlando, sino también participar de forma proactiva, aportando desde nuestros propios puntos de vista, perspectivas y experiencias.
Muchas gracias, Daniela. If the other panelists would like also to intervene on the question, you're more than welcome as well. Thank you very much. If seeing no comments, I would like now to direct a question to Jose Ramon. And my question would be in line with again what was mentioned before by Dr. Corina when she was laying out the insights of the report. But specifically, I would like to know, what do the report's findings imply in terms of cybersecurity risks, deepfakes, and impacts on the labor market for the region? So I'll circle back to labor market, which was a bit mentioned in Dr. Corina's report. Sorry, I've been hearing that my internet connection is not that great. Could you hear the question, Fool?
I could, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, let me first start. I mean, the report touches on mainly 3 safety issues: malfunction, misuse, and societal impact. And regarding malfunction, let me just say one simple thing, because I've written a book about this, and that Penguin is going to publish probably, and it's an ecosystem, then an essay, and then a policy brief and institutional proposals. And the issue is the following. I believe that epistemic alignment between human and artificial intelligence must become a precondition for durable value alignment in the governance of advanced AI. And this is something that not many people are working on. And I think that without sufficient epistemic alignment, value alignment remains unstable and shallow. And because we cannot reliably converge on what ought to be done, if we lack shared criteria for what counts as true, explanatory, or warranted in the first place, then we won't get there. I mean, I just wanted to say that I have lots of material on this, and I have tried to present it to the panel. Anyway, now let me go to a more pragmatic thing, which is my proposal, and it begins really with a simple reframing. You know, well, how does a country like Mexico, and by extension Latin American, Caribbean, and by extension the global South, secure a meaningful place in the age of artificial intelligence without being reduced to a consumer of technologies designed elsewhere and on terms set elsewhere as well. So the conventional framing of the AI race, so who builds the most powerful frontier model, you know, and the race for supremacy is a contest that very few countries and certainly just a few corporations can enter, and one that confuses the means with the end. The decisive race is not over who builds AI, but over who deploys it intelligently and responsibly across the real economy, agriculture, health, you know, energy, manufacturing, what else, but public administration, etc. So deployment, not origination, should be where prosperity will be won or lost over the next 2 decades, or maybe less. This reframing reveals a precise complementarity, between countries like Mexico or Latin America and the Caribbean and the United Kingdom. The UK has certainly world-class research. DeepMind, the Alan Turing Institute, the AI Safety Institute, ARIA, and its principles-based regulatory model, but lacks the scale and the developing world deployment context needed to prove AI can deliver beyond London and Silicon Valley. Mexico, for example, has exactly that 130 million people, the 14th largest economy, deep integration with North American supply chains, and urgent challenges in, again, health, water, food security, energy, etc. And neither country can fully realize its AI potential alone. So together we can. And this is something I've been working on. I've also documents that can be shared if needed. And I propose hence a binational and by extension also multinational innovation ecosystem built on 4 pillars. Joint applied research in priority sectors, let's say structured talent exchange, interoperable governance frameworks, and particularly epistemic alignment, as I mentioned before, as a founding principle, which I believe is something we should work on. For example, the Mexican anchor would be ARIA Mexico, you know, an advanced research agency focused on applied deployment, structurally insulated from the political cycle, important, and the first in the world to incorporate epistemic alignment into its founding mandate. That key thing. And then for Latin America and the Caribbean, the significance is this. A Mexico-UK partnership of this kind would produce a governance model with credibility in our region that no purely European or North American framework can carry along. It would offer the, by extension, again, the global South, also something genuinely new, a model of secure AI ecosystem with, well, actually built with us, not only by us, but with us, not delivered to us. That's the main difference, you know. So the window is narrow, the opportunity I think is real, and I can share documentation in this regard if needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jose Ramon. Are there any comments from the other panelists? Daniela, Dr. Karina?
Maybe I can just say something quickly for the cyber risks. One of the findings that we found was that it's currently unclear whether what the offense-defense balance is. So whether AI is being more used for attacking or more used for defending, because it can also be used to defend systems, of course. Now, there seems to be a real risk that even though globally it's unclear where the balance is, that small and medium sized enterprises might suffer first and most because they do not have the means to build up proper AI defense in a way. So I mean, I'm German, so this is also very relevant for Germany, but I imagine it's also a big topic in Latin America. So that would be something useful to look at, I think, from a governance point of view. And then another one is that the global effects of the labor market are currently sort of even, so we do not know where we only see very targeted effects, but we do see these targeted effects in some sectors, such as customer service sectors. So I think countries who are, countries need to think about, what does their labor market look like and how might AI affect it. And I imagine countries are already doing this, but I just want to re-emphasize that this might be, this is becoming really urgent as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carina. Daniela?
Sí, solo me gustaría complementar súper rápido algo de los riesgos que se hablaron en la conversación del año pasado, que coinciden mucho con el informe de este año, justo. Sí mencionan como ciberataques, fraudes y estafas como uno de los principales, sobre todo la automatización de estos, los esquemas de phishing sofisticado, deepfakes para estafas, y eso porque, por ejemplo, aquí en México, solo en el primer cuatrimestre de 2025 tuvimos 40,000 millones de ciberataques registrados. Y somos el tercer país, ¿no? En primer lugar está Brasil, en segundo está Colombia y en tercero está México, sobre los países más atacados en temas de ciberseguridad. Y también una de las realidades, y ahorita lo mencionaba la doctora Carina, es que nuestras economías están sostenidas por pymes, y algo que nos han mencionado es que entran en esta disyuntiva de ya dejamos de lado si tienen que utilizar inteligencia artificial o no, o sea, si quieren o no pueden utilizar este tipo de sistemas, sino siquiera digitalizarse porque tienen miedo de no cumplir con los estándares de ciberseguridad y que eso les cueste mucho. Entonces, eso también es una realidad de la región. Y también en términos de mercado, lo que ya estamos viendo es temas como economías que están muy basadas en outsourcing, ya se están viendo afectadas por la automatización y por este tipo de sistemas, como lo es, no sé, Colombia, que mucho de esa economía está basada en call centers. Entonces sí, ya estamos viendo este tipo de riesgos y de efectos en la región.
Muchas gracias, Daniela. Antes de continuar acá, should I switch to English? I always forget. Yeah, this is a Spanglish webinar, as we said. We see there are questions in the chat. Some of the speakers are already answering them live. We will continue to do so. We might get one or two here to answer. Before that, I would like to, again, using my privileges as a moderator, ask a general question to the entire panel. And I would like to ask, how can the governments in the region use this evidence that we've gathered from the report that was so well presented before to inform their national AI strategies and risk management frameworks? So can anybody take a stab of that answer, please? Daniela?
¿Puedo arrancar
Sí,
si quieren?
sí.
Pues yo creo que uno de los principales aportes que tiene el informe es que ayuda a mover la conversación de una visión a lo mejor abstracta sobre inteligencia artificial, sobre los riesgos, hacia discusiones mucho más concretas sobre capacidades, riesgos y preparación institucional. Entonces, eso es algo que yo aplaudo muchísimo de todo el esfuerzo que hacen con este documento, y eso es especialmente útil para América Latina y el Caribe, porque muchos países todavía están definiendo sus estrategias nacionales, sus prioridades, sus agendas alrededor de esta tecnología, y toda la información que viene en este documento puede ser de mucha ayuda para ver cuáles son las cosas que deberían de estar priorizando. Y, por ejemplo, el informe deja claro que los riesgos no tienen la misma probabilidad ni el mismo impacto, y eso justamente ayuda a priorizar, porque para países con recursos limitados, intentar abordar todos los riesgos al mismo tiempo puede ser muy complicado, pero sí pueden identificar aquellos que resuenen más con sus realidades y con sus contextos y que están impactando de forma más directa a sus países, a sus comunidades, a su población, o el que podría impactar más a corto plazo para empezar a construir los mecanismos y las respuestas necesarias. Y lo que me gusta mucho de este informe es que sí es uno técnico, pero a la vez es muy entendible para quienes no lo son, y pone en evidencia la necesidad de que estos temas se aborden no solo desde lo social o lo político, sino también desde este lado que es un poco más técnico. Así que siento que esa es una buena práctica que se debería de estar replicando también a nivel regional y a lo local.
Muchas gracias,
Carlos,
Daniela. José Ramón,
sí,
por favor.
sí puedo decir algo. Cuando he participado en reuniones dentro del panel de expertos en la preparación del informe, he mencionado que quizá por la constitución de la mayoría de los que participan ahí, la orientación técnica es más importante a veces que la otra, la socioeconómica, política, cultural, etcétera. Hay poco al respecto. Y una de las cosas sobre las que hay poco es en nuestros países y en nuestra región, cuál va a ser el impacto de una tecnología que nosotros no gobernamos, sobre la que inclusive el mundo no tiene una participación, vamos a llamarla democrática, porque las decisiones son tomadas por entidades que no están representadas electoralmente. La gran mayoría de la gente no participa en los consejos de las grandes empresas, ni tampoco en lo que dirimen los muy pocos gobiernos que lidian con esto. De manera que nosotros somos receptores pasivos con todas las consecuencias que esto tiene, pero no tenemos una información respecto de cómo nos va a afectar. No hay un estudio respecto de si va a haber desempleo derivado de la automatización, si va a haber cada vez más desigualdad derivado de esto. En fin, puedo seguirle. Están ahí reportadas, pero como región tenemos que organizarnos para entender cuál es el problema y qué es lo que podemos hacer. Por eso quizá lo que traté de decir, la propuesta que estoy haciendo, podría ser útil, porque países como el Reino Unido pueden engancharse con nosotros para generar ese ecosistema, tanto de entendimiento como de acción. En fin, hay mucho dicho, mucho planteado y analizado, pero hay que aterrizarlo. Y ese es nuestro reto. Yo creo que es el reto de esta reunión. Vamos a aterrizar esto con cosas muy concretas que pueda aceptar el Reino Unido y nuestros gobiernos. En fin, mucho que decir.
Sí, muchas gracias. Tuvimos una respuesta aquí del chat, lo que dijo José Ramón, en inglés. Deployment, not origination of AI is more important. José Ramón, I totally agree. In fact, there is a very good book about it, Technology and the Rise of Great Powers, that explains how diffusion shapes economic competition. Bueno, es el comentario que tenemos. Now we have a question in the chat directed to Dr. Karina. It says that, hi, thanks for the presentation. I have been working in the public sector of Chile as coordinator of digital transformation since 2023, around the time ChatGPT became publicly available. Our focus was initially in adoption, but since it was already mentioned today, adoption is moving faster than governance. We have been noticing that we need authorities to start adopting using AI tools to understand and give some urgency to governance. That's on a micro scale. How have you been dealing with that on a global scale, Dr. Karina?
So I think you were chopped off for example, at least like for me. Can you just repeat
Oh,
quickly
yeah,
just
oh,
paraphrase the
absolutely.
question?
The question was how, because there is a difference between adoption and governance, right?
Yes.
Adoption is much faster than governance. And we've been noticing that we need authorities to start adopting using AI tools to understand and give some urgency to governance. But that's on a micro scale. How have you been dealing with that on a global scale?
Yes, I think on the global scale, we see a lot of struggling. I mean, this seems to be an effect that's taking power, that's happening everywhere across the globe. And I mean, we're also living in a time where international organizations are maybe weaker than they used to be before to coordinate these efforts. At the same time, we see a lot of global efforts as well to standardize, at least. I mean, it's hard to agree on how to regulate the technology or whether to regulate the technology itself or regulate the technology or regulate the sector. So there's a lot of global disagreement on those aspects. But at the same time, there seems to be a general consensus that something needs to be done, and governments seem to be moving at their own, well, at different speeds. But for example, in the EU with the EU AI Act, we've seen a massive development in this direction with the development of the Code of Practice, which at least is like a guidance on how to conform to certain safety and transparency standards. And California has their own regulation. There are various voluntary reporting frameworks as well on the global level that sort of exemplify how there is like a budding global cooperation. At the same time, this sort of issue is something that we see across sectors, especially, well, in governance, public governance, but also in education, where kids are just really good at using AI technology. Kids are using this now, to write their essays. They're using the systems for companionship. At the same time, the teachers might not have the same level of competence with these systems, and like the syllabus, like, of course, does not cover the risks that are associated with the use of these technologies in the educational settings. While at the same time, of course, AI offering these possibilities of giving educational chances to everyone and just like even out the inequality that we see in education as well. So yes, it's an ongoing challenge, but we do see some positive developments.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Karina. Any further comments? I see we're going a bit over time, but if anybody wants to have one last comment, or else they will pull me out, take me out of the Zoom room. Sí, Daniela, por favor.
Pues tal vez como para concluir un poco, creo que diría que la colaboración regional no es opcional, y hago eco a lo que estaba diciendo José Ramón. Probablemente es una de nuestras mayores ventajas estratégicas. Muchos países de la región enfrentamos limitaciones pues muy parecidas, escasez de talento especializado, capacidades institucionales, dependencia tecnológica y presupuestos también reducidos. Entonces, pues intentar construir capacidades de evaluación o marcas de gobernanza de manera complementaria, completamente aislada, puede ser muy costoso e ineficiente. Así que creo que sí, debemos de utilizar esto como una ventaja estratégica y coordinarnos entre la región, que yo sé que suena muy utópico, pero pues ojalá impulsemos esto.
José Ramón, por favor.
Well, I fully agree and want to echo what Daniela has just said. Of course, I mean we are joined in this. We need to recognize what our vulnerabilities are as a region and as countries. So the digital divide, disconnected small and medium-sized enterprises with 70% not even being digitalized in any way, institutional weakness. And then there's no AI or education strategy, really. I mean, if you see how much we spend on R&D, and what percentage are patents that come from our region, you will see our structural weakness, and then and this is, of course, amplified by trade and so on and so forth. But we must make this happen. I mean, we don't have much time, and maybe I don't know. I mean, it's just my idea, but the binational or multinational innovation ecosystem built on the pillars I mentioned. I mean, it's not that I think I have the truth. Just something that we can land these proposals, these Zoom meetings. Would be really, really great if we can proceed strategically, practically towards at least one binational ecosystem with the UK. I mean, it is possible. I'm working on this. I say this because I'm working on this on this side with the Mexican embassy here, and we have etc. But you on that side in Mexico, you can also work with the British embassy in establishing that kind of an ecosystem that can then be reproduced maybe to other Latin American countries. Maybe we all can do something together, particularly understand what the problem is and what the challenges are. We don't know. That's it. Okay, so I said enough. Thank you very much, Carlos.
Carlos,
Thank you
can I
very
just
much, Mr.
say
Ramon.
like
Yeah.
3 words at the end? I just want to
Absolutely.
encourage everybody to take a look at the report. So there's, of course, the 200-page monster version, but we also have a 15-page policymaker summary or a 3-pager for people who are very pressed by time. But it is really the most comprehensive, most vetted evidence base on state-of-the-art AI and its risks. So it is written to be accessible to a broad audience, as Daniela also pointed out earlier. And so it is for you in a way. So feel free to take a look and use it for your work to help you make good decisions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karina. And thank you very much, panelists, for this great discussion that we had. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. And I would also like to thank our attendees. We've had, over the course of the webinar, over 500 people joining us live. This is just in Zoom. We also were transmitting on LinkedIn and YouTube, so many more there. I would also like to thank our partners, the UK government, the British Embassy in Mexico City, AISI as well, for their continued partnership and helping with developing this report. And also, of course, Ian, Daniela's presence here was great, super. And thank you very much for joining. I would just like to mention that we will be sending you via email a post-event survey with asking for your feedback on the event. So please fill that form when you have a chance. Also, we see that we've been getting a lot of questions in our chat regarding OAS's activities in cybersecurity. I would like to recommend that you follow our social networks and subscribe to our mailing list, which Katya, my colleague, has put in the chat the link to the mailing list. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for our latest. And also there is the link to the report that Dr. Karina just mentioned. And thank you very much for joining. And hopefully you'll have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you very much and see you in the next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Muchas gracias. Bye bye.